Welcome to Starbound, where every star tells a story. What happens when a lovable alien family comes to Earth for a vacation and hit a major snag along the way? Also, check if you're subscribed, because if you're not, do it. It's totally free. But now, let's get into the story. The azure expanse of Earth filled the viewport of the Chevsler Suburban as it descended towards the shimmering Pacific Ocean. Inside the shuttle, the Hiratten family buzzed with excitement, their green skin shimmering in the soft glow of the cabin lights. Gary, the patriarch, adjusted his seatbelt with a grin, his antennae twitching in anticipation. "Almost there, kids," he chirped, his voice a melodious trill. Beside him, his wife Alara smoothed down her travel tunic, her large eyes sparkling. "Just imagine, Gary," she cooed, "sandy beaches, crystal clear waters, and those adorable earth creatures they call dogs." Their two children, Zog and Zilla, bounced in their seats, their antennae quivering with glee. Zog, the elder, peered out the window, his eyes wide with wonder. "I can't wait to try surfing," he exclaimed, his voice a high-pitched chirp. Zilla, the younger, clutched a plush toy shaped like a dolphin. "And I want to see a real whale," she squealed, her voice barely a whisper. Suddenly a loud klaxon blared, and red warning lights flashed across the control panel. Gary's antennae drooped in alarm. "What's happening?" he cried, his voice tinged with panic. Alara grabbed the armrests, her eyes wide with fear. "The shuttle's malfunctioning," she shouted, her voice barely audible over the din. The shuttle lurched violently, and the family was thrown against their seats. Gary struggled to regain control, his hands flying across the controls. "Brace yourselves," he yelled, his voice a desperate plea. The shuttle plummeted towards the ocean, its engines sputtering and groaning. The Hirattens screamed as they hurtled towards the water, their world a blur of blue and green. With a deafening crash, the shuttle slammed into the ocean, sending a plume of water high into the air. The Hirattens were thrown forward, their bodies battered and bruised. As the water rushed in, Gary struggled to release his seatbelt, his lungs burning for air. He managed to free himself and swam towards his family, his heart pounding with fear. He found Alara floating unconscious, her body limp in the water. He grabbed her and swam towards the surface, his arms straining with the effort. He broke the surface, gasping for air, and dragged Alara onto a nearby piece of debris. He shook her gently, his antennae quivering with worry. She coughed and spluttered, her eyes fluttering open. "Gary?" she whispered, her voice weak. "It's okay, Alara," he reassured her, his voice trembling. "We're safe now." They looked around, their eyes wide with shock. The shuttle was nowhere to be seen, and they were surrounded by the vast expanse of the ocean. Zog and Zilla swam towards them, their eyes filled with tears. "Mommy! Daddy!" they cried, their voices filled with relief. The family clung to each other, their bodies shivering with cold and fear. They were alone, stranded in a strange and unfamiliar world. As they floated on the debris, they noticed a large fin slicing through the water towards them. Gary's antennae perked up in hope. "Look!" he exclaimed, his voice filled with excitement. "It's a rescue ship!" The fin grew closer, its shape becoming more defined. It was a shark, its teeth gleaming in the water like white spears. Gary's smile faded, replaced by a look of horror. The shark lunged towards him, its jaws wide open. Gary screamed as he was dragged under the water, his body thrashing in the shark's powerful grip. Alara and the children watched in horror as their father disappeared beneath the waves, their cries echoing across the empty ocean. The Hirattens were alone, their dreams of a family vacation shattered. They huddled together, their bodies trembling with fear and uncertainty. As the sun began its descent, casting long shadows across the rolling waves, Alara gathered her children close, her heart heavy with grief and fear. The loss of Gary had left a gaping hole in their lives, a void that threatened to swallow them whole. Zog, ever the brave one, tried to maintain a facade of optimism. "We'll be okay, Mom," he chirped, his voice a forced trill. "We just need to stay together and find a way to signal for help." Zilla, however, clung to her mother, her antennae trembling with fear. "I want to go home," she whimpered, her voice barely a whisper. Alara stroked her daughter's head, her own antennae drooping in despair. "I know, my darling," she murmured, "but we must be strong for your father's sake. He would want us to survive." With a newfound determination, Alara began to assess their situation. The debris they clung to was a makeshift raft, barely large enough to support them. They had no food, no water, and no way to communicate with the outside world. As darkness fell, the ocean grew cold and menacing. Elara huddled her children close, sharing their body heat. They drifted aimlessly, the only sound the rhythmic lapping of the waves against their makeshift raft. Suddenly, a loud splash echoed through the night. Zog gasped, his antennae twitching in alarm. "What was that?" he whispered, his voice filled with fear. A large, dark shape emerged from the water, its eyes glowing in the moonlight. It was a whale, its massive body dwarfing their tiny raft. Zilla screamed, her voice a high-pitched squeal. "It's a monster!" she cried, burying her face in her mother's tunic. Elara's heart pounded with fear, but she knew they had to remain calm. "It's just a whale, my darling," she soothed, her voice trembling. "It won't hurt us." The whale circled their raft, its enormous eyes studying them curiously. It let out a series of mournful cries, its voice echoing across the vast ocean. Zog, his curiosity piqued, reached out a tentative antenna towards the creature. "Hello," he chirped, his voice barely a whisper. The whale responded with a gentle nudge, its massive body rocking their raft gently. Zog giggled, his fear replaced by wonder. Elara watched in amazement as her son interacted with the creature. She had heard tales of Earth's whales, their intelligence and gentle nature, but seeing it firsthand was truly awe-inspiring. As the night wore on, the whale continued to circle their raft, its presence a comforting beacon in the darkness. It seemed to understand their plight, offering a silent companionship in their time of need. With the first rays of dawn, the whale disappeared into the depths, leaving the Hirattens alone once more. But the encounter had given them a glimmer of hope, a reminder that they were not entirely alone in this strange new world. Elara, feeling a renewed sense of hope, rallied her children. "Come, my little tadpoles," she said, her voice surprisingly strong. "We must not despair. We have survived the night, and that is something to be grateful for." Zog, inspired by his mother's resilience, straightened his antenna. "We'll find a way out of this, Mom," he chirped, his voice filled with determination. Zilla, still clutching her dolphin toy, looked up at her mother with wide eyes. "Will we see another whale?" she asked, her voice hopeful. Elara smiled, her heart warming at her daughter's innocence. "Perhaps, my darling," she said. "But for now we must focus on finding food and water." The Hirattens spent the morning scouring their makeshift raft for anything edible. They found a few scraps of food that had survived the crash, as well as a small container of water. It wasn't much, but it was enough to sustain them for a while. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, the heat became oppressive. Elara used a piece of debris to fashion a makeshift shade, protecting her children from the harsh rays. They drifted on, their eyes scanning the horizon for any sign of land or rescue. Hours turned into days, and still they saw nothing but the endless expanse of the ocean. Their meager supplies dwindled, and their spirits began to flag. Zog, once brimming with optimism, grew quiet and withdrawn. Zilla's cries for her father became more frequent and heart-wrenching. Elara, however, refused to give up hope. She told her children stories of their ancestors, their resilience and ingenuity. She reminded them of the Hiratten spirit, their unwavering belief in the face of adversity. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, a pod of dolphins appeared, their sleek bodies leaping through the waves. Zilla squealed with delight, her eyes sparkling with joy. The dolphins swam closer, their playful antics drawing a smile from even the most despondent Hiratten. They circled the raft, their clicks and whistles filling the air with a symphony of sound. Zog, his curiosity piqued, reached out a tentative antenna towards the closest dolphin. The dolphin responded by nudging his hand, its touch surprisingly gentle. Elara watched in amazement as her children interacted with the creatures. She had heard tales of dolphins' intelligence and empathy, but seeing it firsthand was truly remarkable. The dolphins seemed to understand the Hirattens' plight. They brought them fish, their sleek bodies diving into the depths and returning with a bounty of food. The Hirattens feasted, their hunger finally sated, their spirits lifted, and their hope was renewed. They had found allies in this strange new world, creatures who understood their need for companionship and sustenance. As the dolphins swam alongside their raft, guiding them through the vast ocean, the Hirattens felt a sense of belonging, a connection to this alien world. They were no longer just survivors. They were explorers, discovering the wonders of Earth and its inhabitants. Their newfound hope was short-lived, however, as the dolphins suddenly vanished, leaving the Hirattens alone once more. A sense of dread washed over them as the sun began its descent, casting an ominous glow on the darkening sea. Suddenly, a chilling sound pierced the air, a series of high-pitched clicks and whistles, followed by a deep, guttural growl. Alara's antennae twitched in alarm, her instincts screaming danger. "What is that?" Zog whispered, his voice trembling. Before Alara could answer, a large black and white figure breached the surface, its powerful tail sending a wave crashing over their raft. It was an orca, its sleek body glistening in the fading light. Zilla let out a terrified shriek, clinging to her mother. "Another monster!" she cried, her voice filled with panic. Alara's heart pounded in her chest as she watched the orca circle their raft. She knew that these creatures were apex predators, feared throughout the galaxy for their intelligence and ferocity. The orca, however, seemed more curious than aggressive. It swam alongside their raft, its massive eyes studying them with an unsettling intensity. Zog, his fear momentarily forgotten, reached out a hesitant antenna towards the creature. "Hello?" he chirped, his voice barely audible. The orca responded with a series of clicks and whistles, its language incomprehensible to the Hirattens. Alara, however, sensed a hint of amusement in the creature's tone. The orca circled their raft again, its movements growing bolder. It nudged the raft with its snout, causing it to rock violently. Zilla screamed, her grip on her mother tightening. Alara's antennae drooped in despair. They had survived a shark attack and found allies in dolphins, only to be faced with an even greater threat. As the orca continued to play with their raft, Alara realized that it wasn't trying to harm them. It was simply testing their resilience, their ability to withstand its playful nudges. With a surge of adrenaline, Alara grabbed a piece of debris and waved it at the orca. "Enough!" she shouted, her voice surprisingly strong. "We are not your playthings!" The orca paused, its eyes widening in surprise. It seemed taken aback by Alara's defiance, her refusal to cower in fear. With a final click and whistle, the orca dove beneath the waves, disappearing into the darkness. The Hirattens, their hearts still pounding, clung to each other, their relief palpable. They had faced another challenge, another test of their survival skills. And once again, they had emerged victorious. Their resilience, their unwavering spirit, had seen them through yet another harrowing encounter. Days turned into nights, and the Hirattens' ordeal continued. Their food supply dwindled once again, and their bodies grew weaker. Despair began to creep into their hearts, threatening to extinguish the last embers of hope. One morning, as Alara roused her children from their fitful sleep, she noticed a change in the air. The wind had shifted, carrying a faint, salty scent that stirred a flicker of excitement within her. "Do you smell that, my little tadpoles?" she asked, her voice filled with a cautious optimism. Zog and Zilla sniffed the air, their antennae twitching. "It smells like land!" Zog exclaimed, his eyes widening with hope. Alara nodded, her heart pounding with anticipation. "It could be," she said. "Let us pray that the wind is guiding us towards salvation." They drifted on, their eyes fixed on the horizon, searching for any sign of land. Hours passed, and still they saw nothing but the endless expanse of the ocean. As the sun began its descent, casting long shadows across the waves, Zog let out a cry of joy. "Look!" he shouted, pointing towards a distant speck on the horizon. Alara and Zilla followed his gaze, their hearts leaping with hope. The speck grew larger, revealing itself to be a ship, its sails billowing in the wind. "It's a human ship!" Alara exclaimed, her voice filled with relief. "They are known for their kindness and compassion towards other species. We are saved." The Hirattens waved frantically, their antennae quivering with excitement. The ship, however, continued on its course, seemingly oblivious to their presence. Despair washed over the Hirattens once more. Had their hopes been raised only to be dashed again? Suddenly, a loud whirring sound filled the air. A small, sleek craft detached from the ship, its engines humming as it descended towards them. The craft landed on the water beside their raft, its hatch opening to reveal a group of humans, their faces filled with concern. "Greetings," one of the humans said, his voice a friendly baritone. "We are a rescue team from Earth. We received a distress signal from your shuttle and have been searching for you." Alara's antennae perked up in surprise. But our communication system was damaged in the crash, she explained. How did you find us? The humans smiled. We detected a faint energy signature emanating from your location, he said. It was enough to lead us to you. The Hirattens were overcome with gratitude. They had been rescued by the very species they had come to visit, the galactic peacekeepers known for their advanced technology and compassion. The humans helped the Hirattens onto their craft, their touch gentle and reassuring. They were taken to the ship, where they were given food, water, and medical attention. The Hirattens marveled at the humans' hospitality and generosity. They were treated like honored guests, their every need catered to. The captain of the ship, a tall, broad-shouldered man with a kind face, introduced himself as Captain Thomas. He explained that Earth was a popular destination for intergalactic travelers, known for its diverse cultures and natural beauty. The Hirattens listened eagerly, their curiosity piqued. They had come to Earth seeking adventure and relaxation, but they had found so much more. They had discovered the resilience of the human spirit, their unwavering compassion in the face of adversity. They had learned that even in the darkest of times, hope could be found in the most unexpected places. As the ship made its way towards the nearest spaceport, the Hirattens were given a tour of the vessel. They marveled at the advanced technology, the sleek design, and the intricate workings of the ship's systems. They were shown the bridge, where Captain Thomas and his crew monitored the ship's course and communicated with other vessels. They were taken to the engine room, where they witnessed the raw power of the ship's propulsion system. They even got to see the ship's medical bay, where they were given a thorough examination by the ship's doctor. The Hirattens were amazed by the humans' knowledge of medicine and their ability to heal injuries that would have been fatal to their own species. As they explored the ship, the Hirattens interacted with the human crew, their initial apprehension replaced by a growing sense of camaraderie. They shared stories of their respective cultures, their customs, and their beliefs. They learned that humans, despite their technological prowess, were still deeply connected to their planet and its inhabitants. They valued nature, cherished their families, and strived for peace and harmony. The Hirattens, in turn, shared tales of their own world, their love of exploration, and their desire to experience new cultures. They spoke of their grief for Gary, their lost patriarch, and their gratitude for the humans' kindness. The humans listened with empathy, their hearts touched by the Hirattens' resilience and their unwavering spirit. They offered words of comfort and encouragement, reminding the Hirattens that they were not alone in their grief. As the ship approached the spaceport, the Hirattens felt a mix of excitement and sadness. They were eager to return to their own world, to be reunited with their loved ones, but they were also sad to leave behind the humans who had shown them such kindness and compassion. Upon arrival at the spaceport, the Hirattens were greeted by a delegation of human officials, their faces beaming with smiles. They were offered a place to stay, as well as access to any resources they might need. The Hirattens were overwhelmed by the humans' generosity. They had expected to be treated with suspicion or even hostility, but instead, they were welcomed with open arms. They spent the next few days exploring the spaceport, learning about the humans' spacefaring capabilities, and interacting with other alien species who had also come to Earth. They were particularly fascinated by the humans' space exploration program, their ambitious plans to reach the farthest corners of the galaxy. They listened with rapt attention as the humans described their vision of a united galactic community, a future where all species could coexist peacefully. The Hirattens were inspired by the humans' optimism and their unwavering belief in the potential of all sentient beings. They realized that they had much to learn from these Earthlings, their wisdom and compassion, a beacon of hope in a galaxy often marred by conflict and strife. As the day of their departure approached, the Hirattens were filled with a mix of emotions. They were grateful for the kindness and generosity shown to them by the humans, but they also longed for the familiarity of their own world. Before they left, Captain Thomas presented them with a gift, a small data module containing information about Earth and its inhabitants. "This is a token of our friendship," he said, his eyes twinkling. "We hope that you will return to Earth one day and share your own knowledge and experiences with us." Alara accepted the gift with a grateful trill. "We will cherish this gift," she said, her voice filled with emotion, "and we promise to return one day, with tales of our own adventures to share." The Hirattens boarded their repaired shuttle, their hearts filled with gratitude and a newfound appreciation for the human spirit. As they lifted off, they looked back at the receding Earth, a beautiful blue marble hanging in the vastness of space. They had come to Earth seeking a vacation, but they had found so much more. They had discovered the resilience of the human spirit, their unwavering compassion, and their boundless optimism. They had learned that even in the face of adversity, hope could be found in the most unexpected places. As the shuttle entered hyperspace, Zog turned to his mother, his eyes filled with wonder. "Mom," he chirped, "do you think we'll ever see Earth again?" Elara smiled, her antennae twitching with a newfound confidence. "I have no doubt, my son," she said. "We have made friends here, and we have a promise to keep. We will return to this beautiful planet one day, and we will share our own stories of hope and resilience with the humans who welcomed us with open arms." And so, the Hirattens' journey came to an end, but their story was far from over. They had been forever changed by their encounter with the humans, their hearts filled with a newfound appreciation for the diversity and wonder of the galaxy. As they traveled through the vastness of space, they carried with them the memory of Earth and its inhabitants, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, hope could be found in the most unexpected places. They were the Hirattens, survivors, explorers, and ambassadors of goodwill, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead with a newfound resilience and an unwavering belief in the power of the human spirit. On their way back, they would explore and understand the galaxy. The Pacific churned violently, the aftermath of the shark attack leaving a crimson stain in the azure waters. Gary, his vision blurred with pain and shock, felt a searing agony radiating from his left leg. The shark, having taken a sizable chunk of his limb, had retreated in disgust, the taste of Hiratten flesh not agreeing with its palate. As Gary lost consciousness, the currents carried him away from the wreckage of his family's vacation dreams. Hours later, he was found by a group of human divers exploring the area. They were startled by the sight of the green-skinned alien, but their instincts for compassion and aid kicked in immediately. Gary was brought aboard their research vessel, the MV Curie, and rushed to the medical bay. The ship's doctor, a brilliant surgeon named Dr. Elizabeth Lawson, was fascinated by the alien physiology and set to work stabilizing Gary's condition. Using advanced medical technology, she was able to stop the bleeding and prevent infection. When Gary awoke, he was disoriented and confused. He had no memory of who he was, where he came from, or what had happened to him. Dr. Lawson explained that he had been in an accident and suffered a severe injury to his left leg. Over the next few weeks, Gary underwent a series of surgeries and rehabilitation sessions. The humans, using their advanced technology, were able to regenerate his lost limb, crafting a prosthetic that seamlessly integrated with his body. As Gary recovered, he began to regain fragments of his memory. He remembered his name, his love for his family, and their ill-fated vacation to Earth. The pieces were slowly coming together, but the full picture remained elusive. One day, as Gary was undergoing a memory restoration session, the floodgates opened. He remembered everything: the crash landing, the shark attack, the desperate struggle for survival. He also remembered his family, their faces filled with fear and uncertainty as they drifted on the makeshift raft. A wave of guilt and despair washed over him. He had abandoned his family, leaving them to fend for themselves in a strange and dangerous world. He had to find them, to reunite with them and apologize for his absence. But by the time Gary had fully recovered his memories, his family had already left Earth. They had been rescued by another human ship and taken to a nearby star system, their vacation cut short by the traumatic events they had endured. Gary was devastated, but he refused to give up hope. He knew that he had to find his family, no matter the cost. With the help of Dr. Lawson and the crew of the MV Curie, he set out on a quest to reunite with his loved ones. A journey that would take him across the vast expanse of the galaxy and test the limits of his newfound resilience. The MV Curie, its hull gleaming in the light of a nearby star, cut through the vast expanse of space. Gary stood on the bridge, his newly regenerated leg throbbing slightly as he gazed out at the swirling nebulae and distant galaxies. His heart ached with longing for his family, their faces etched in his memory. Dr. Lawson, standing beside him, placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. "We'll find them, Gary," she assured him, her voice gentle yet firm. "We have the technology to track their transponder signal. It's just a matter of time." Gary nodded, his antennae twitching with a mix of hope and anxiety. He had learned much about humans during his time on the Curie. Their compassion, ingenuity, and unwavering determination had inspired him. He had come to see them not just as rescuers, but as friends, allies in his quest to reunite with his family. Captain Emily Chen, the ship's commander, approached them, a datapad in her hand. "We've received a promising lead," she announced, her voice brisk and professional. "The Hiratten shuttle's transponder signal was last detected in the Epsilon Eridani system. We're setting course now." Gary's heart leapt with joy. Epsilon Eridani, a star system known for its lush, habitable planets, was a popular vacation destination for many species, including Hirattens. It was possible that his family had sought refuge there. As the Curie entered hyperspace, Gary retreated to his quarters, his mind racing with thoughts of his family. He pictured Alara's warm smile, Zog's inquisitive eyes, and Zilla's playful laughter. He couldn't wait to hold them in his arms again, to tell them how much he loved them and how sorry he was for leaving them behind. The journey to Epsilon Eridani was long and arduous, but Gary used the time to learn more about human culture and technology. He spent hours in the ship's library poring over books and data modules. He practiced speaking English, his pronunciation improving with each passing day. He also spent time with the crew, sharing stories of his life on Hiratten, their home planet. He was fascinated by the humans' diverse backgrounds and experiences. He learned about their history, their struggles, and their triumphs. One evening, as Gary was sharing a meal with Dr. Lawson and Captain Chen, he asked them about their families. Dr. Lawson spoke of her husband, a fellow scientist who was working on a groundbreaking medical research project. Captain Chen spoke of her 2 daughters, both aspiring astronauts eager to explore the galaxy. Gary listened with a pang of envy. He missed his own family dearly, their absence a constant ache in his heart. He vowed to do everything in his power to find them and bring them home. After weeks of travel, the Curie finally arrived in the Epsilon Eridani system. As they approached the spaceport, Chen sent a signal, alerting them of Gary and the Hiratten family who they were after. Luckily for Gary, the family were still at the spaceport, an extended break and one last breath before they returned home. As he approached them, they had not noticed him, until Zilla let out a screech, "Daddy!" The rest of the family turned, shocked at Zilla, until they finally met eyes with Gary. The next thing, Gary was jumped on by all 3 of them. Barely managing to get back to his feet, he motioned to Chen and his team, explaining the rescue they had given. The tale of the shark and how tasting bad is not always a bad thing. The Hiratten family were back together through the tribulations of Earth. They had grown, and now forever closer as a family. It was their turn to finally return to their home together as a family at last.